Hey everyone, and welcome to this high-yield explainer. If you are a medical student gearing up for your microbiology exams or board reviews, you are in the exact right place. Today, we're going to completely demystify Weil's disease, which you probably also know as severe leptospirosis. We're taking a super focused, board-style approach to make absolutely sure these concepts stick in your brain. So, let's just dive right in. Here is a quick look at our syllabus for today. We'll start with some clinical case presentations, look at the infectious agent and how it's transmitted, break down the really unique biphasic clinical features, cover diagnosis and treatment, and wrap up with prophylaxis for our at-risk patients. All right, Section 1. Let's get right into our clinical case presentations. I want to hook your brain right away with a classic vignette. Picture this first patient walking into your clinic. He's a sewerage worker. You know the drill. Look closely at his occupation because that is a massive, massive clue. Now notice the specific symptoms. He's got worsening jaundice and hepatomegaly, which points us directly to some major liver distress, right? But on top of that, he has decreased urine output. That screams acute renal failure. So just file this combination away for a second. Severe environmental exposure plus rapid hepatorenal failure. Now flip the script and compare him to our second patient. This guy is a 31-year-old male, and his symptoms kicked in exactly 3 days after open water sea swimming. Pay attention to that timeline. He comes in presenting with a fever, a throbbing headache, and neck stiffness. Those are classic, textbook neurological signs of meningitis. But here's the kicker. His lab results also show deranged liver and renal function tests. So, what is going on here? What crazy etiology brilliantly links these totally distinct environmental exposures, a guy working in the sewers and a guy swimming in the ocean, to this rapid multi-system failure involving the liver, the kidneys, and the meninges? You guessed it, it's Weil's disease, the severe, life-threatening form of leptospirosis. We're going to use this master study guide to literally decode everything you need to know for your exams. It maps out the bug, how it spreads, and this fascinating biphasic clinical course that makes this disease so incredibly unique. Moving right along to Section 2, the agent and transmission mode. To actually understand the weird symptoms we just saw, we have to understand the bug itself. The absolute culprit here is Leptospira interrogans. Now, the super high-yield thing to remember is its structure. It is a spirochete. These guys are spiral-shaped bacteria with a notoriously thin cell wall. And because of that corkscrew shape and their intense motility, they can literally burrow into tissues and cross mucosal barriers with terrifying efficiency. So where on earth do we get this spirochete from? Well, it's a zoonotic disease, originating primarily from rodents. The number one fact to drill into your memory right now is the specific source: rat urine. As for the mode of transmission, it generally happens in one of two ways. First, you ingest food or drink that's been contaminated by infected rat urine. The second way, and this really highlights that corkscrew motility we just talked about, is direct penetration through your mucous membranes, especially the conjunctiva of the eye. And honestly, this perfectly explains the cases we looked at earlier. Sewerage workers are literally surrounded by potentially rat-infested water. Open water swimmers can easily get contaminated water splashed right into their eyes or mouths. And here's a totally classic examiner trick to watch out for. They'll describe a patient drinking straight from an unwashed tin can, like a soda, that's been sitting in a rat-infested warehouse. That is a textbook classic exposure route. Now, once a patient actually gets exposed, the incubation period is anywhere from 2 to 20 days. The bacteria needs that time to multiply before the patient actually starts feeling sick. If you think back to our sea swimmer from case 2, he presented exactly 3 days after his swim, which puts him right at the very beginning of this critical incubation window. Which brings us nicely to Section 3, the biphasic clinical features. What is absolutely fascinating about leptospirosis is its pathophysiology. It hits the patient in two very distinct phases. In phase 1, the spirochete enters the bloodstream, usually via the GI tract or the conjunctiva. And from the blood, it makes a beeline for your body's major filtration organs. It goes straight to the liver, and it goes straight to the kidneys, setting up shop and causing massive, massive local tissue damage. So phase 1 is your organ system phase. You're going to see hepatitis, which explains the deranged liver function tests, the jaundice, and the enlarged liver. You're also going to see nephritis leading to acute renal failure, which totally explains the decreased urine output. But then, there is a shift. Phase 2 kicks in. This is often an immune-mediated phase, where the spirochetes manage to cross the blood-brain barrier. They attack the nervous system, causing aseptic meningitis, giving you that neck stiffness and severe headache. In super rare, highly tested cases, it can even cause pericarditis in the heart. Understanding this leap from phase 1 to phase 2 is absolutely crucial for mastering Weil's disease. All right, on to section 4, diagnosis and medical treatment. So you recognize this biphasic pattern in your patient. How do you actually confirm it? Well, don't bother trying to run a standard bacterial culture, because spirochetes are incredibly difficult to grow in the lab. Instead, your gold standard for leptospirosis is serology testing. You are looking directly for the body's antibody response to the Leptospira antigen. Once you have it confirmed, you need to hit it hard with antibiotics. Your primary go-to pharmacological treatment is doxycycline. The specific dosage you want to memorize for the boards is 100 milligrams taken twice a day for solid 14 days. If your patient has a contraindication to doxycycline, say maybe they are pregnant or it's a very young child, and pincicillin serves as your highly reliable alternate treatment. But hold up, you have to be incredibly aware of the GH reaction, officially known as the Jarisch-Herxheimer reaction. Examiners absolutely love to test this. Basically, when you give antibiotics to someone with a huge spirocate burden, the rapid die-off of those bacteria releases a massive wave of endotoxin-like substances into the blood. This triggers a sudden, severe inflammatory response. Your patient might suddenly get spiking fevers, chills, and hypotension. You have to anticipate this. If your patient spikes the fever right after that first dose, do not panic and stop the drug. It actually means the antibiotics are doing their job. Finally, let's wrap things up with section 5, prophylaxis for at-risk groups. Treating the disease is great, obviously, but preventing it from happening in the first place is even better. Let's think back to our open water swimmer. Assuming we treated him and he's fully recovered, what if he's a hardcore surfer and wants to keep getting in that potentially contaminated water? How do we keep him safe? We put him on a targeted prophylaxis protocol. For high-risk activities like surfing, adventure racing, or working in flooded zones, we actually prescribe prophylactic doxycycline. But notice the dosage difference here. For prophylaxis, it's 200 milligrams taken orally just once a week. That single weekly dose is enough to suppress any Leptospira spirochetes that might sneak into the conjunctiva or get swallowed, totally preventing them from setting up that devastating phase 1 hit in the liver and kidneys. By connecting these environmental exposures straight to that biphasic organ damage, you are more than ready to crush any Weil's disease questions they throw at you on the boards. I just want to leave you with this final thought. The very next time you see a clinical vignette featuring sudden liver failure paired with meningitis, are you going to spot that hidden link to a rat or an unwashed soda can? Keep this pathway in mind, and there's no way you'll miss it. Thanks so much for joining me on this